Good morning. I, Dr. Chanchal Kumar Mishra, Assistant Professor, BIT Mishra. I welcome to all my seniors, my colleague, my friends, and my dear students. Today I am going to deliver my topic, Forensic Medical Law and Ethics under the Forensic Medicines and Ethics. Introductions. What is law? A system of rules that a society or government develop in order to deal with crime, business agreement, and social relationships. What is ethics? It signifies the moral values of person to person and the dignitaries. What do you mean by medical ethics? It is a moral principle for registered medical practitioners in their dealing with each other, their patient, and state. Now, what do you mean by medical etiquette? Medical etiquette, it is the way of behavior, conventional laws, customs of courtesy, and code of conduct for doctor with his colleagues. Now, here is the medical council. That is the what are the important rule of medical council. So it can be identified with the various rules. It is responsible for the recognitions of medical qualifications. It is also supervisions of undergraduate and postgraduate medical educations. It is also responsible for the re recognitions of a foreign medical educations, those who have completed his qualifications outside the country, and medical council of India, they can be verified and authorized that it is sufficient as per the medical council parameter or not. It is also responsible for the de-recognitions. Someone cannot be recognized, he have the right to recognize or either refuse. It should maintain the medical register. Medical council give the warning notice to the unfair means practiced or illegal persons who can be not exactly authorized as per the medical council parameters. Medical Council of India should also appeal against the disciplinary actions for the fraudulent persons and for the unregistered practitioners. Now, what is the role of state medical councils? The state medical council should have to maintain the medical register. It should be also responsible for the disciplinary control. If any type of unfair means that can be found by the any of the persons and that can be reported in the state medical council, then committee should be decided what type of disciplinary action should be taken. State medical council is also responsible to produce or give the warning notice. The state medical councils is also responsible to erase the individual's unfair and unregistered practitioners persons from the state medical council register because of his malpractice or because of his unfairness, because of his producing the fraudulent documents and etc. Now, what is the duties of medical practitioners towards the patients? There's a lots of responsibilities of the medical practitioner toward the patients, in which he is responsible for the treatment of patients is implied contract. It should be examinations and consent too. It's a duty to continue the treatment if the patient's desired or patient's requirement. It's a duty to earn confidence of the patients too. It's a duty to children and inform. They have the right to charge for the professional services. Medical practitioners have the right to choose a patient as per his specializations and his practice. It's a duty to give the proper directions to the patient and the concern. It's a duty to offer proper regimes of treatment. It is also responsible to notify the communicable disease if anyone near the society or the state. Now, the duties of medical practitioners towards state is very important. He is an authorized person to produce the notifications of infectious disease to the government and to the authorized person, or it should be also notified to police also. It is the persons who can be notifications of birth and death and he is the only eligible person to issue of a certificate. The medical practitioner's response to emergency military services also. Now, the duties of medical practitioner towards one another means in the same professional, they can respects to your seniors, respects to the juniors. That is very important. So, in this context, medical practitioners extend some honor, respect, and good to his juniors as well as the seniors. It's a behavior as expected from them, and it should not do or utter anything to lower down to any of the colleagues. It should not entice patients away from, and they always respect to the juniors and seniors and the colleagues. The free medical services to fellow colleagues. It means that you should never charge if you can suggest and if you can advise any medicine or treatment to any of your colleague or your juniors or your seniors. That is completely free. That is for the mutual understanding, and this is the way of a good practice. Now, what do you mean by professional misconduct? Where it can be happen? How it can be happen? The conduct considered as disgraceful or dishonorable by professional brethren of good repute and competency. The misconduct may be issue of false medical certificate, sometimes as per the requirement of the patient and requirement of the any persons, the doctors or medical practitioner produces the false medical certificate. That is a wrong practice. Covering up unqualified persons. If someone is not exactly qualified and we can protect him, that is not the good practice. Helping the quacks, those who are not registered medical practitioner, you can't help them. Canvassing means false document or false prescription. Sometimes you can producing, that is another form of misconduct or another form of bad practice. To personally open chemist, medical counselor or a medical professionalist never open the chemist shop because it is pre-decided this type of right should be provided to the registered pharmacist only. To prescribe the habit forming drugs, if the patients never required such drugs which can produce some habituations, you should never advise them. Disclosing professional secrets of the patients, that is also the important assets. Means you never disclose any one of the patients privacy or the informations to anyone else. Medical practitioners treating the patients under the influence of drink or drugs, that is also the bad practice. So you can advise to the patient as per the requirement. Never advise at the conditions when you are taking some drinks and some form of drugs. Professional negligence, it means the malpractice. What do you mean by negligence? It means it is doing something that one is not supposed to do or failing to do something that he is supposed to do. Professional negligence means what? Means sometimes it is the absence of reasonable care and skill that should be provided to the patient, or willful negligence of a medical practitioner in the treatment of a patient which causes bodily injury or death of patients. Means when the patients join any hospitals or any clinic, they have a good faith about you or about the medical practitioners. So the medical practitioners have the responsibility to take care anyhow and provide the whatever the facility, whatever the best facility they can provide to the patients only. One more important term that means that is a res ipsa loquitur. That means the things or fact speaks for itself. There is some elements of this terms. First, injury could not occur without negligence. If you can provide the proper treatment, no injury should be occurred. Second point, defendant had full control over the agency or treatment causing injury. Sometimes you can say that the overconfidence may create some negative or bad problems. Third point, that is plaintiff did not contribute to the injury. Now, the criminal malpractice is what? Criminal malpractice, the medical practitioner prosecuted in a criminal court on the charge of having caused death of his patient by a rash or negligent act not amounting to murder. And the gross carelessness means whole carelessness in the treatment that should be mentioned in the section 304A IPC. Now another term, and that is very important terms, that is a concern. Consent is important in the medical practice. So what do you mean by the consent? What is it required? So consent, it is an agreement, compliance or permissions given voluntarily without compulsion. It should be explained in two ways. Express, that means convey in words or by gesture and conduct. It should be explained in verbal ways and it should be explained in the written ways. Second, another aspect is implied. It means to communicate an idea or feeling without saying it directly. A few important aspects of informed consent. It means the nature of ailment or disease process, which type of disease, what type of complications are there. That is also the important aspects that need to share to the patient and the family members. Nature and plan of proposed line of treatment, which type of treatment should be provided to the patient that may share to his family members. Alternative form or line of treatment means you can also suggest there is another way is also there. That way may be simple or may be complicated. Nature of risk involved in both. If you give the consent, it means not that you are getting whatever you desire. The chances is there. That is that chances may be and 50 and 50. That I have discussed in the examples. Same statement, that is relative chances of success, benefit, burden or failures. Freedom of choice. You have the right to go somewhere else if required. If you are not satisfied with the treatment and the procedure, you should go somewhere else. Consent in writing always. That should be the good practice if any medical practitioner should take in the consent in the written way, and that is important. Consent in writing always before medical legal examinations. And one important aspect, a child below 12 years cannot give the valid consent. The consent given by the 12 years age categories, male and females, that consent is not valid. Express consent always before any procedures beyond ordinary medical examinations. That is the another aspects. Open consent. Sometimes one relatives is not there and some other persons are there and the consent is required. Someone non, they can give the open consent that you should go for this process because its process should help to the patients. Never it can be another options. We don't have another option, so you should go for the procedures. So open consent is like that. Consent given under fear, misinterpretation by incense or intoxicated persons is not valid. That is mentioned in section 90 IPC. Means those who are not in the conditions to give their own consent, then the persons who has in very fear, they can know don't know that what will be the happen. So that time the person's consent is not valid. Another aspect, it is not an offense when any harm is caused by any act done in good faith, even without consent, or under circumstances when it was not possible to take the consent that is mentioned in section 92 IPC. Now, what do you mean by euthanasia? Euthanasia is another aspect that is very important to the medical parameters. It means that is the medical killing, means good death. You can explain in this way, the painlessly killing the victims suffering from some incurable disease, severe pain, etc. by himself or other, especially when the victim's life is presumed to have become unuseful. When the person's conditions is very critical and we don't have any type of treatment, then that time the person's desire to go for the mercy killing and the age the criteria is not favorable to the patients. So that is the way of mercy killing. Now, few more important terms related to the euthanasia, that is active euthanasia. It means the positive act of killing with drugs. Sometimes it should be applied in the animals. Passive euthanasia, act of omissions to continue life-sustaining measures. Sometimes it should be required. Involuntary, patients in the positions to give consent, but decision taken by relatives and physician. And non-voluntary, patient not in positions to give the consent because he is not in a conscious stage. Voluntary or physician assisted suicide, it means with consent of the patient only. Now, whatever we have discussed under this sections, we can solve and we can try to solve some important questions related to these. Now, question 1. The contributory negligence means what? Option A, negligence of the doctor, B, negligence of nurse, C, negligence of patient, and D, negligence of doctor and patient both. Question 2. Res ipsa loquitur means what? Option A, negligence of surgeon, B, punishment in negligence, C, liability in negligence, D, things speaks for itself. Question 3. What is the minimum age required to give valid consent for risky surgery? Option A, 12 years, B, 16 years, C, 18 years, D, 21 years. Question 4. What do you mean by professional death sentence that refers to option A, rigorous imprisonment, B, capital punishment, C, issue of warning notice, D, penal erasure of the name from medical register. Question 5. Privileged communications is used by doctor. Option A, to protect his own interest, B, to protect the interest of society, C, to punish the patient, D, to blackmail the patient. Reference is attached here. You should just click and get the full articles, and on that basis you can get the right answer. Question 6. In corporate negligence, damage offer is due to option A, lack of skill by qualified doctor, B, faulty instrument, C, fault by the nurse, D, lack of infrastructure of hospital. Reference is attached here. You should just click and get the full articles. Question 7. The disciplinary control over registered medical practitioner is under option A, State Medical Council, B, World Medical Council, C, Director General of Health, and D, Health Secretary of State. Now, last but not the least, question number 8. Standard of medical education in India is regulated by option A, State Medical Council, B, Medical Council of India, C, Indian Medical Association, and D, National Board. The last session, that is student and student interactions and student and teacher interactions topics. Now we have the 4 important topics in which your attentions, your interactions is required. First one, duties of medical practitioner towards patient. Second, professional misconduct. Third, consent. Fourth, euthanasia. So you should start the discussions with the relevant examples only. Thank you. I hope this lecture will help you. Thank you very much.